Let's talk about Cam Whitmore, who is one of the rookies I was most intrigued in diving back into. He obviously had a really fun rookie season with the kind of highlight plays he can produce, and he was electric at Summer League. I was fortunate to be there to watch him cook in person, and quite a few of you actually reached came up to me and said hi and said that you liked the video. So appreciate all of you very deeply. If any of you are watching this, huge shout out to you. But like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff to help me make more of these. Let's break down Cam Whitmore's game, talk about what he did last year, and think about how good he can be. And obviously, the thing with Cam is the athletic tools, the explosion from all over the floor. That's going to be the first thing that people think about, that people talk about when they watch and they think about Cam Whitmore. And for good reason. He was able to turn defense into offense and be just an absolute wrecking machine in the open floor. And of course, that explosion as a driver did translate pretty well to the half court, where Cam was a great cutter, able to slip through gaps and get to his spots to dunk the ball. He played really well off of Amen and Shangoon, working in the dunker spot. And he showed some pretty good instincts cutting off of sleeping defenders. As good play here where Cam notices Emmanuel quickly taking away Jeff Green here. Immediately Whitmore cuts behind him, gets the ball, hard pound dribble with two hands, and works his way in for an easy layup. Shangoon flexing, he loves that play. But Whitmore's off-catch driving was so awesome as a rookie, and this was really my vision for him coming out. I thought he could be a really special attacker off the catch, and honestly, I think he really can be, as Whitmore has a good enough shot to really draw closeouts. We'll talk about that more soon, but Booker closes out hard because Whitmore is a shooter. Beautiful little hop step, keeps his handle, floats that ball in. I definitely want to see more handling, more touch, more winning with things other than brute strength, with which obviously Whitmore is going to be able to do at a high level, even versus NBA competition. He is an absurd athlete. Again, we see Whitmore drawing a closeout, and that's a great flash there. Highsmith does not want to leave Whitmore open, so he's going to stab hard. Beautiful Euro step and off foot finish right there, scooping it in. I definitely don't think we saw enough of this in his rookie year, at least going forward. I guess I could say I'd like to see more touch and patience work, where Cam oftentimes was just like this, blowing to the rim. Obviously, the plays like this are going to probably be his bread and butter, right? Coming off of a dribble handoff, kind of has an advantage created for him, and just he's unstoppable downhill. Nick Richards has no chance in containing an athlete, a physical talent like Cam Whitmore. He throws Luka backwards here and draws a foul. Like, he is so fucking strong for a 19, 20-year-old. It's absurd. And his speed to power is just as crazy, using his great horizontal explosion to flow into drives. He did some. I actually don't know why this clip was here. This clip's supposed to be way later. But enjoy a very basic pick and roll pass here. This is the stuff that we obviously want to see more of. The passing is something we'll get into in a bit. But Cam Whitmore was often maligned throughout the season for just not passing, and I do think that's warranted. He really does like to shoot the ball, and I get it because of how dynamic of a creator he is. So many of these plays, you'll notice that there's like someone at the dunker spot open, but it doesn't matter because Cam can throw back whoever is standing in front of him and score. Like, Cam Thomas has no chance here when Cam gets low like this. He bends his knees, he gets leverage, and he explodes through his chest. There's really nothing you can do. And he gets so high that he jumps so high that the shot blocker, Nick Claxton, isn't able to get anywhere near the ball, because like players who can't get as high off the floor have to rely on their touch more. Like, it's easier for shot blockers to handle them, but Whitmore can legitimately just get closer to the rim and move himself further away from the outreaching arms of shot blockers, which is really impressive. And when his handle held up, which the handle is going to be an improvement point for sure, but I thought it already looks quite a bit better than it did in college. In college, his handle was atrocious. He constantly lost his dribble unimpeded, couldn't control the ball, but quick little move here to get past Noir, and just you can see the burst, the explosion, finishing off of 1 foot with his left hand. He, I think, is going to be one of the most fearsome straight line drivers in the league. But again, the handle is going to need work, where this time Whitmore basically kind of pretty much unimpeded. No one even touches the ball. He just loses it off of the drive. And I think like Amen kind of has this issue too. A lot of these crazy athletes are almost too fast and powerful for their own handle to kind of catch up. But I do think that's something that can improve with time. And Whitmore, again, we can kind of see when that handle does get thrown off, he doesn't play with great pace. His Dunn kind of pokes this from behind, and Whitmore ends up corralling it. But again, he picks up the ball really, really early here. He's not hopping off of two. He just throws up a bad shot when with Markkanen doing a great contest. So the feel stuff is definitely going to have to progress. And I do think probably caps his ceiling to some extent. I don't know if Cam's ever going to have the kind of feel or playmaking to be a real primary initiator, which is why I see him as more of a secondary off-ball type scorer. But hey, on a team with Amen Thompson and Şengün and now Reed Shepherd, you don't really need to be the primary playmaker, decision-maker type guy. Or I definitely think you can cut back the plays like this where Cam is picking up the ball at the free throw line and just barreling through defenders. Of course it is going to work, and Cam was pretty efficient at the rim this year. I think he was like 60th percentile at the rim, which is pretty good considering his overall degree of difficulty at times. But I do think there's a lot of these plays that can be cleaned up, where I just don't really want to see Cam taking running sky hooks off of a curl. This is a great action. I love getting Cam moving downhill off of like this kind of double stagger, but I would also love to see Cam be able to take more dribbles here to keep his handle alive, to maintain options instead of picking up the ball. And here now there's two things you can do. You can shoot, or you can try to pass and probably turn the ball over. And Cam's obviously going to try to shoot. That's his MO. We know how he is and we know how he likes to play. Stuff like this where he's not really playing with any sort of manipulation or pace. And when he can't win with his power, as Grimes just kind of backs off and Cam isn't going full juice here, he takes a lot of really rough shots where Amen is cutting here. You could pass it back out, try to skip it, kick it. Like, there's so many other options if Cam keeps his dribble alive, plays more off of 2 feet, hop steps, and waits. And I think some of this is surely going to come with age. Though I do think there's a limit to how good Cam can get feel-wise in terms of being a primary initiator and being the main ball handler, which ultimately to me is going to be the main determiner of his ceiling. How good Whitmore ends up being is really going to depend on how many of these drives to nowhere, I'll say, he can turn into positive plays. These like barrels to the rim that don't really amount to much, that aren't really great process. How much of that can he turn into positive stuff? Because Cam's shooting is awesome. I think he shot like 38% last year on like really like I think like 80th percentile volume per 75 possessions. So obviously didn't play as much as a lot of other players, but in his sample of minutes, he shot a lot of threes and he's good at them. He shoots them from really deep. I love Cam relocating back out to the perimeter. He was a great shooting prospect in high school and college. So him being an awesome shooter as a rookie isn't really much of a surprise. This is about what I expected for Cam. Again, relocating up to the top of the key, very comfortable shooting from NBA range, and he was much better. He was much more efficient shooting off the catch than off the dribble. I think he was around like 40% off the catch and a lot lower shooting off of the dribble. But there are moments where Cam can rise over defenders with his height, 6'7", 6'8", like a smaller defender in Mike Conley. 1-2, rise up with his high release. He sets the ball above his head, and Cam's able to like not get blocked because he can jump really high on his jumpers too. So there certainly is pull-up shooting upside, and I think he's going to have to become a nice pull-up three-point shooter to really hit his ceiling. Though I do think Cam can get better at deciding when to shoot the catch and shoot and when to work into his dribble. Because on a play like this, I kind of wish Cam would just shoot the ball, where oftentimes he will kind of have no conscience and just shoot the ball off the catch without being hesitant. But there are plays like this where he'll do too much and dribble into a step back, and that's a fairly open shot that he ends up just totally bricking off the side of the basket. So those are going to be improvement points when it comes to his shooting. Cam was not very efficient in the mid-range. I think he was like 30-ish, around 30-ish%, but he showed some flashes of hitting a little pull-up mid-range, and I think it's really good for his game and his development that defenses have to go over. You can't go under on Cam Whitmore, not just because he's a good shooter, but because he's such a willing and confident shooter. He will punish you if you go under. So they go over. Cam's going to get a lot of these pull-up opportunities versus drop. And again, we see another play where he probably could have passed to a men for a wide open dunk, but doesn't. The passing vision, especially when he's trying to score, is pretty poor. I definitely will say it's quite poor. But these pull-up shots are going to be an interesting swing, because if he can get good at this, a lot of young players, Jalen Green notably, I think of, really struggle with this intermediate game. Anthony Edwards is starting to figure it out, but struggled with that for the first couple years of his career. Wiggins as well, another example who struggled with that early. Whitmore rejecting the screen here. Keon Ellis has to fight over hard because he knows Whitmore will shoot the ball if he doesn't. Alex Len's dropping, and Whitmore rises up for an easy pull-up jumper. So this is going to be an interesting thing to track, whether or not Whitmore can expand his off-bounce shooting game to be more efficient and confident in the mid-range. And of course, like I said, there's so many plays like this where there's somebody wide open under the basket or out to the perimeter, and Cam shoots the ball anyway and just makes it because he's an awesome shooter and he can really score. But I do think the process here isn't great to me, and I do think it's going to limit his ability to have and sustain usage unless he can become just incredibly efficient at scoring, like elite efficiency, which is possible, I think, but that's more difficult to me than improving a little bit as a passer. What I think the weirdest thing about Cam that I've always said, going back to his high school tape, is that he has moments where he's making really good passes. Brown is closing out hard. Cam maintains his handle, works downhill, plays off of 2 feet, and kicks to the corner. This is awesome stuff. But a play like this happens once every 5 or 6 games for Cam. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because there are a lot of players like Cam with low feel, poor decision making, and other Cam like Cam Thomas, who just clearly doesn't have the vision, doesn't have the high-end passing feel or flashes, but Whitmore does. He will create advantages obviously as a driver and then play off of them with his passing. Really good job here making Sensabaugh, punishing Sensabaugh for going under by using the rescreen. He draws in Lofton, drops it down to Jock. This is a legitimately advanced point guard level play, using screen manipulation, getting back to the middle, making a good read against drop coverage. But where is this for 90% of his time on the floor? I really don't know the answer, and it adds a whole other layer of this pass was so awesome. And this is what we're talking about, right? 90% of these plays, there's a guy wide open, Cam's is going to shoot. But you'll see that he does have the ability to see and make these passes. So I wonder what unlocking it looks like. I really haven't seen a player like this with his kind of passing flashes, but the overall lack of willingness. I think Wiggins didn't have these higher end passing flashes. I don't even know if Anthony Edwards really did as consistently, but I don't know. I really don't know. I'm fascinated to see how it goes this year. His offense is, I think he gives a chance to be a star level offensive player. Defense, I still believe in, but it was pretty rough this year, as it is for most rookies, so I'm not docking him like crazy. But he showed some really impressive stuff, especially guarding the ball. He's so strong and can hold up against bigger players with his quick lateral movement, strength, and explosion. He's going to guard Jaylen Brown 1v1 and just block the shit out of him here. Not a lot of players who can hang with a guy like Jaylen physically, but Cam is one of those players where he's so quick laterally, strong, able to stay balanced, vertical, block that shot. He has all of the tools to be an elite on-ball defender. And I'm pretty bullish on that happening. We've seen the aforementioned Anthony Edwards, Andrew Wiggins types who really struggled with technique and consistency at a younger age become really great on-ball defenders later in their careers as they age. So I do think Cam is going to be a really nice on-ball defender. Again, we see him sliding with Patrick Williams, poking the ball out. And there were some awesome flashes of rim protection in college, and we saw a few of them this year. Crazy rotation here, jumping over to block Tatum. We see the elevation, we see the great timing on that block. But overall, the off-ball defense was pretty atrocious as a rookie, which isn't too surprising. It was poor in college, and it's poor for most rookies. This was a nice play, though. I like Cam sliding down from one pass away. He sees that Fred gets beat, and before Jaime even crosses the 3-point line, Cam slides into his path and ends up contesting and forcing Jaime to miss and take a really tough reverse layup. But that's kind of where the good defensively ends, at least for this showcase, as I watched a ton of defensive possessions and clips. Just kidding. He can make another play here, swiping at the ball. The good isn't over just yet, Cam Whitmore fans. But yeah, I watched a ton of defensive clips for this video and defensive games and stuff, and it was really rough. Here, Cam loses Trey Murphy lifting to the perimeter and ends up giving up a pretty open shot to an elite shooter there. The off-ball awareness was really poor. And I do think, again, this is stuff that can improve for younger players. Or here, Whitmore, this is more of a positioning thing where Whitmore jumps to his left for kind of no reason and lets Anderson get a step on him, and that's a really tough finish, all things considered. It is very common for young players to be low awareness, low effort off ball, to not really feel the game as a help defender. Whitmore not providing any resistance until it's pretty much too late here on this Claxton lob. So it's going to be another thing of, obviously Whitmore has the ability to block shots, to protect the rim, to rotate, but the willingness, and to me it's less even about his willingness, and it's more about his court awareness and processing, how fast he's seeing the floor, because it seems pretty limited. He's ball watching, staring at Keon Ellis, and his man Duarte is able to pretty much just stroll up to the wing and catch and shoot a wide open three without very much effort. So I do think a lot of this is technique and effort, but I do think a good amount is feel as well, as Cam struggles to get over this screen, and I don't think him chasing over screens is going to be a thing that he should do very often, especially not against elite off-ball movement shooting guards like Isaiah Joe. He will be more of an on-ball guy, and that's just okay. Whitmore, again, though, makes a really nice rotation here. Like I said, the flashes kind of exist, where he's reading Anthony Edwards. He knows the Ant is probably not going to pass back to Nikhil with his back turned. He's just not that kind of player. Reads this skip out to the top of the key and intercepts. Beautiful, beautiful defense there. And, of course, he can explode and turn that into offense, going the other way because of how dominant a transition threat. But then you'll have a play like this where he's guarding Duncan Robinson in the corner, ball watches, sags off, and gives him a wide open three. I think a lot of this is rookie stuff, plays like this, not being aware, not being attentive. But I think while this is fixable, it's only to a certain extent. So it's hard to increase feel at the highest levels. So I do think it's probably always going to be an issue. A guy like Jaylen Brown, who has developed into a pretty good defender, still has these record scratch issues where he's just lapsing, and that is always going to hurt his value. And I think that's probably also going to be the case with Cam. Again, we just see him zoning in on the ball here. He's watching Jaden drive, and Naz Reid's easily able to catch and hit that beautiful floater. Oh man, I love Naz Reid. If Cam is going to watch the ball, I think he can really improve as a nail defender, because if he's not going to be aware of the backside, might as well use your length and your explosion to get into McDaniel's handle, try to force a turnover, rip this ball out instead of just standing around and not doing very much, which oftentimes was the case. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I can imagine Cam didn't travel very many miles and stuff or move very much on defense. And then on the ball, the technique stuff, as I kind of mentioned earlier. So many plays where he's not really in a good stance. He opens up his hips in one direction and gets burned and then totally just isn't able to recover. Though I do think the point of attack technique-ish stuff I'm not super worried about. But this is the stuff that I'm more worried about. The effort, the awareness, the off-ball defense. Off-ball defense is so important in the modern NBA. It just happens more than on-ball defense. Whew, beautiful play by Sasser, but nice get back there. Yeah, there are just more off-ball defense than on-ball defense plays. You have to play help on every single play pretty much, and that's a big struggle area for Cam. But I think as a whole, his rookie season was pretty good. He was a really effective scorer, crazy good, crazy efficient, and high volume scoring in his minutes. Obviously Cam didn't play as much as a lot of other elite scorers, but his scoring volume and efficiency were impressive for someone his age. His athletic tools and explosion getting downhill, I think the driving upside is sky high, and that combined with his shot gives him a really nice floor, as even if Cam, I think, doesn't improve the the feel stuff or the defense or some of his shot selection on the perimeter, he can still be a really solid, useful offensive player because no one can stop him as a driver. And I didn't show much of it, but he's an incredibly good foul drawer, and he's going to shoot the ball really well on catch and shoots. I think I have a lot of confidence in him being at least a pretty good shooter off the catch for his career. But yeah, I do think that star ceiling is there, where Cam can be like a top 30, 25-ish player in the NBA to me, if he can have seasons where he's really passing the ball a little bit better, if he can have seasons where he locks in on defense and is just overwhelming on the ball and then passable off the ball. So there are quite a few pathways to me for Cam to get to legit stardom, and that's part of why I'm optimistic about him. There are multiple ways he can improve the passing, he can improve the defense, he can become an even better shooter, an even better driver, an even better ball handler, where Cam is already awesome with a ton of clear improvement points, which I think is a good sign, right? And overall, while there are plenty of issues with Cam, and I think it's a little while before he becomes like a really quote unquote like good player, right? There's going to be time, but he's super young, and I think he fits really well with the Rockets' young core as this like off-catch attacker, where because they have amazing young passers like Amen and Şengün and Reed, they don't have to have him be a high-volume decision maker. He doesn't have to do that. And I think because of that, he's in a really good environment to succeed. The offense, I think, theoretically, when all these guys develop, could be built really, really well around him. And I think because of that, Cam Whitmore is going to be a damn good player. But let me know what you think, and as always, like, subscribe, comment would be hugely appreciated.